Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by the young prodigy himself, lifetime Longhorn CJ Vogel. And today we're going to continue our pre-spring position previews, breaking down every position. We're on the defensive side of things, and we're looking at the linebacker position today. And CJ, I got to tell you, man, I got giddy when we started talking about doing the linebacker preview because it gives me more opportunity, or at least an excuse to go watch more film on Rasheed Biles. Go break down some of Rasheed Biles' stats because that guy's phenomenal. And he's going to lead this linebacking core. And I think with him as the lead and then some of the other pieces, of course, Anthony Smith is going to be a big part of this thing as well. This linebacking core could be spectacular potentially in 2026.
Yeah, spectacular is a good way to look at it. Look, I'm very intrigued by this group, and I say that because I think you have havoc-minded guys in the middle, right? We talked about Rasheed Biles. You talk about what we saw with Anthony Smith, especially against Michigan when, it felt like the ball was just always around him against Texas A&M. I know he sat out that first half of that game, but that Texas defense, especially in the front seven, it looked significantly quicker when he was on the field, Rod. And that's something that I can't help but think, hey, you have two guys right now that lead that room who are very instinctual, very quick to react, and can find the football. And, having seen Tyler Atkinson in person a couple times, that's what he is as well. So I'm very intrigued by this room and what it might look like going into the spring and obviously into the fall.
All right, now looking at the rotation and what it could look like, just so you know, a little backdrop. Now, Muschamp is got his own way of doing things, so he's going to bring his own style of rotation with linebackers and different personnel. But in 2025, you had 4 linebackers with at least 400 snaps. That means you're pretty deep there. 3 linebackers with at least 300 snaps in 24. 4 linebackers with at least 300 snaps in 23, 3 linebackers with at least 300 snaps in 22 and 21. So on average, it's probably about 3 linebackers with at least 300 snaps. If you're feeling really deep, I think they go 4 linebackers with at least 300 snaps, somewhere around there. What are your thoughts about that, CJ? How deep do you think this thing is going to go?
Yeah, so it's always interesting. Whenever I sit here and in my mind, I try to talk linebacker, Rod, and I don't know if this happens to you or folks at home, but I sit here and I think about linebacker, and my brain, for whatever reason, just keeps out Brad Spence.
It does. Great
and
point.
I can't get over that hump. I don't know why, if it's a mental block or whatever, but it's very similar to a year ago when it was, okay, Texas has Brad Spence and Trey Moore. How do they utilize either of them?
Yeah.
Where are they specialized?
Yep.
And so when I sit here and I kind of ponder about what this room might look like, for whatever reason, Brad Spence is left out. And this is a guy that at Arkansas in 2024 was a 4.5 sack guy playing basically only the middle of the field. So look, I don't know what that rotation will look like. I think you have 4.5 top guys, right? Biles, Smith, Spence will be in that. And then, that 1.5 other will be to Justin Crier, Tyler Atkinson, depending on how the spring goes. But the ultimate catalyst in this and the way that it could pivot in from being a good to a great is what type of ceiling or production do you get out of Brad Spence? Something that I don't know just yet.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because Texas played him, I think he had 77 snaps in the box last season, but 172 on the edge.
Yeah.
And so Texas really started to use him more of that power rusher on the edge. So that has kind of distorted all of our view of Brad Spence and what he's going to provide. And he could potentially, if you're just looking at him from an edge perspective, he might be one of your second or third best natural pass rushers from the edge right now in the front. So I'm with you. I think that is interesting. That's why he's almost like a thrown-in bonus for you. It's like, well, what are you going to get out of Brad Spence? What do you need from him? Do you need somebody with the because are you going to be running more box blitzes? You need a linebacker that you would like to blitz more. Matter of fact, let's start breaking down the skill sets because that's a great one with Brad Spence. Because
I like it.
How about this? This guy's pressure rate. You got what? The last 2 years combined pressure rate is like 18%.
Pretty good.
So he can rush the passer, whether you're talking about, like you said, from the second level, or you're talking about getting them on the edge. So that's one thing you don't want to waste a gift like that. Like I always say, if you guys who can naturally generate pressure, you don't want to waste it. Brad Spence has one of those natural gifts. where he generates pressure. His havoc rate actually last year wasn't bad either. He had, I think, above average havoc rate, in my opinion, last season. So that's a great point. I'm not sure what you do with Brad Smith. I do have him listed down here as well, but I don't have him like with the official linebackers. I got his name in my notes. Let's start with Rasheed Biles, the guy we know is going to be leading this linebacker group. CJ, I mean, the ways they can use him. I went and got some notes about his time there at Pittsburgh. A couple of things that stood out about his time there at Pittsburgh in their scheme. They led the country, the nation, all FBS teams in 6-man pressure rate. So they love to just let him go wreak havoc and add him as a part of their pressure packages. They were 12th in box blitz rate. All right, in terms of blitzing linebackers from that box. To your point, you said Brad Spence would be good at that. Rasheed Biles is also great at that. If you go look at their run blitz, they were top 5 in run blitz rate. And blitzing him on early downs to stunt and neutralize run games. So they did a lot of stuff with him, and I imagine Will Muschamp's going to take some of that and use it here with Texas too, because that's the way they weaponize Rasheed Biles' skill set.
No, yeah, 100%. And I think Texas fans have become very used to weaponizations of the middle linebacker, right? We saw that at times with DeMarvion Overshown. Right, Jalen Ford obviously was a guy who was probably better dropping back into coverage, but obviously Anthony Hill is another. Trey Moore, someone that we saw being blitzed often from that middle of the field. But for Biles, and look, I don't know how much they're going to use Ty Anthony Smith in that role, because I think Ty Anthony Smith is a guy going left to right is probably where he's at his best.
Yep.
But for Biles, look, in any direction, he had a 74.0 pass coverage grade according to PPF. So look, he can go any direction, and to your point, his win rate off the edge or blitz rate coming, off of stunts or whatever. I mean, fantastic. So he's a guy that above anybody else in that middle of the field, I'm really excited to see, Rob.
Yeah, and I looked at his havoc rate because he just has such great instincts, and people don't realize. I mean, this guy has 4 returns for touchdowns in his career, but 3 pick sixes. Guys, I had 3 pick sixes in my career. Like I take pride in that. This dude's done it already. He's got it done a year to go. So he's got this natural gift for just playmaking ability. So I looked at his havoc rate, and I wanted to compare it to the best linebacker in college football, Jacob Rodriguez, right? The Butkus Award winner, the Lombardi winner. He won the Nagurski, Bednarik, all of it, right? He had a 3.8. When I look and broke it down, 3.8 havoc rate, which is freaky. Rasheed Biles had a 3.8% havoc rate. And for those who don't know what havoc rate is, my havoc rate is forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, interceptions, tackles for loss, which includes sacks as well, and any pass deflections, whether that's a tip pass or whether that's a PBU. Right? Basically, it's just all the splash plays. But some people, you can throw block kicks in there too, but not a lot of guys have block kicks. But then you got to include their special team snaps too, and you just divide that number, whatever it is, splash plays, by the number of snaps they play. That's my havoc rate. It's a simple one. And Rasheed Biles got the same one as Jacob Rodriguez. Just throwing it out there. He's a freak. I'm talking about his playmaking ability. All right, let's move on this linebacker room because Ty Anthony Smith, I think, because both these guys are undersized linebackers too.
Right.
Rasheed Biles about a little over 6'1", 220. Ty Anthony Smith was about 215, somewhere around there, about 6'1" as well. But he's got that playmaking ability. You talked about the Michigan games, kind of his coming out party, if you will, with those 2 interceptions. Ty Anthony Smith can learn a lot, especially brought the pass coverage, which is really good for Rasheed Biles. I think that's something that Ty Anthony Smith can learn from him as well. Just just the savvy secrets that he has as a guy that sized, all right, in this modern age of football, and really passing down that knowledge to a guy like Ty Anthony Smith. He can almost kind of walk right in the footsteps of a guy like Rasheed Biles.
Yeah, and look, I think going into 2026, the game should slow down for Ty Anthony Smith quite a bit, right? This was a guy who, we saw, and I think we saw a lot of positive glimpses with, but he missed a lot of tackles. He was your team leader in missed tackles. So, playing the middle of the field, obviously you're going to be more susceptible due to the high volume of being around the football, but knowing how important it is to get guys on the ground. Look, Anthony Hill was really good at it. Ford, DeMarvion, really good at it. Texas had a good run of strong tackling linebackers. That's a part of it that you talk about is if you're going to be undersized, you at least have to be a physical force. And I think we're seeing the right steps, right? He's quick to identify. He's quick to react. I've talked about it a number of times. Anytime he's on the field, I feel like Texas is faster at the linebacking spot. But tackling is something that I look at and say, got to improve, right? Got to improve for Ty Anthony Smith. And to your point, maybe that just comes with needing 6 or 8 more pounds of that offseason armor. And I'm sure that will be a big focus coming into this offseason.
Yep. And it's also, to your point, you started it saying the game's going to slow down for him. That is a part of it. When the game's moving fast like that, I remember that as a young player. Man, it's really hard to get your feet underneath you and make those tackles in the open field. As the game slows down, you're actually anticipating those plays rather than reacting to those plays. So I think just seeing more football for him, I'm with you. I think and having a better group of D tackles in front of you.
That too.
That's not. I was talking to Derek Johnson about that. And he was like, "Oh man, they're gonna be better just because they got a better group of D tackles, more seasoned group of D tackles." And I was like, I didn't think about that." He's like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna make life a whole lot easier for him." That's obviously thinking like a linebacker. I don't think like that. So DJ said, if DJ says it, that means it's true. But speaking of DJ, a young man who's training with Derek Johnson, a legendary lifetime Longhorn, Tyler Atkinson. Now, we can talk about the other, because I think between him and Justin Crier, and Brad Spence, right, they're going to fill in the rest of that linebacker rotation. We just don't know in what way it's going to materialize. But let's talk about this young man, because if somebody, and my friend Derek Johnson raves about him, I'll just say that because he trains with him. He raves about this young man. And everybody I took to believes if he just puts on the right amount of weight, kind of just muscle early on, that his skills are definitely ready to see the field. Like he's got a mature set of skills. I've watched him. The closing speed is elite. The recognition and processing is elite. He's one of those quick processors mentally to diagnose plays. And his production is just other. I'll give you a stats in a second after CJ talks about him, but give me your thoughts about the guy called the T1000. Tyler.
I like that. No, I mean, obviously he's already got a nickname, acting up, right? Tyler Atkinson, that's who we're talking about here. I love him. I think this is one of my top 3 favorite defensive prospects that I've covered at Texas, and that's joining Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons. So that's kind of the breath that I'm putting him in. But look, I think there's 2 points of this. One, he's going to be a fantastic leader. He's eventually going to be a green dot wearer for the defense. Great captain. He did exactly that in high school. He was a multi-time All-State honoree as well. Gatorade, Georgia Player of the Year. Fantastic talent. Where can he get better? Because what he was asked to do a lot of, if it wasn't playing the run, going east to west, or clogging holes, going north, well, a lot of what else he had to do was sit back and spy. So where is he going to improve the most? Where's the most growth in his game going to come, Rod? To me, it's in the passing game, and it's finding depth. It's reading the eyes of a quarterback, playing the zones correctly, and understanding route concepts that might be coming to his left, right, across the face, or behind him, because I don't think he was asked to do a lot of that in high school. I know that more times than not, when you have a player like him, you want him to be the focal point of your defense around the football as often as you can. But when you get to the college level, that's going to be something that I look at in the spring saying, okay, how's he acclimating to needing to drop from 5 or 6 yards off the ball from the snap to 12 to 15 in those deep sets? That's something that I'm going to watch. But other than that, he's going to be a fantastic player for Texas.
Yeah, I love that because I agree with you about him and kind of route recognition and really kind of learning the nuances of the passing game as a pass fit. Because against the run, I'm with you. I think he's got great natural instincts as a linebacker. I call him T1000 because he's a heat-seeking, soulless football cyborg, man. He really is seek and destroy. Here are his stats real quick before we move on. He's coming out of high school, guys, 4 years of high school. 553 tackles, 286 of them solo. Like that sounds crazy. 103 tackles for loss in his career. 39 and a half sacks in his career, 113 quarterback hurries in his career, add an interception, 5 pass deflections, 4 fumble recoveries, 6 forced fumbles, a block punt, and 2 blocked field goals. Dude is a monster. Like I said, he's a machine. And so that's why we're talking about him early. If there's somebody who's going to see the field early, among that, I mean, he's among any of this young guys. I think Tyler Atkinson, I'd put my money on him, man. It's almost undeniable. Okay, Justin Crier. Let's talk about him. We brought up Brad Spence earlier. We know he's going to factor in. Tyler Atkinson is going to factor into, who's going to fill in the snaps behind Rasheed Biles and Tyson Smith. But what about Justin Crier? He's a little bit bigger. You're talking about a guy about 6'1", maybe 240. So he's got a little bit more weight. Is he the guy that if you're going up against a ground and pound team who's trying to take advantage of your lack of size at linebacker potentially, is he a guy that you believe could supplement the linebacking core in the run game, or is he going to fit a certain role on this with this group?
Yeah, I kind of, and this might be a little premature, but I kind of look at him in a role of what we saw with David Binda a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's good.
A guy who against a heavy running team is someone that can plug holes for you. And to the conversation we just had about playing with plus defensive tackles in front of you, he did not do that at Florida State. That was a bad Florida State defense, right? And that started up front. And I think as a result, he was put in pretty tough situations in that second level, right? He was often reached by offensive linemen more times than not. Life was just more difficult for a linebacker when your guys up front just don't do the dirty work for you. So, I think he's going to look at Texas and say, hey, you got to throw all my grades, all my PFF out the window. Let me come in fresh and play with guys that are up to my level. So 6'1", 240 is definitely one of the heavier guys, one of the larger bodies that Texas has at the position. He's going to have a role here. How often do we see him? That's going to be TBD, right? Because we just talked about 3 really talented guys, 2 of which, are going to be in conversations to be, amongst the most important players on your team. And then obviously a 5-star freshman that everybody thinks the world of. So he's going to be in the mix. How much do we see? TBD.
Yep, that's going. Yeah, and I love that roles you're talking about, because we know Brad Spence. We believe he's going to have a role because of his pass rushing ability. We know Rasheed Biles and Tyson Smith are your 2, top guys. Justin Crier, I like that, a little bit thicker. That if you got a team that wants to play bully ball against you, that David Bender comparison is great. Good stuff there, CJ. All right, among these, I'm going to call the other guys, like the great comedy, by the way, Will Ferrell.
Yeah,
and, I would highly recommend that. The other guys there. But Kosi Akpala, Marcus Boswell, and Rocky Cummings, these young guys, which I got to tell you, I think actually 2 of these 3 guys, I bet are going to be special teams like aces for you. I got a feeling Marcus Boswell is going to be one of those guys, and I feel like Rocky Cummings is going to contribute a lot for your special teams. Which one of these guys do you like the most, and what do you have to say about this group of young guys? We know they're not going to probably see much time on the field, knock on wood, unless there's some injuries. But which one of these guys have you seen, obviously, whether as a prospect or here at the 40, you think could, obviously participate or maybe separate themselves from this group?
Yeah, I'll start with Marcus Boswell because I saw him years ago at Lake Travis. Obviously, he spent a year at Akron, coming in as a redshirt freshman to Texas, 6'1.5" 230 pounds. He did a lot of work to his frame since he graduated from Lake Travis, and I got to commend him for that. Is he ready to play full time in the middle of the field? We'll have to wait and see. I don't think so at the moment. Can he give you special team snaps? Absolutely. In fact, I think that's where he starts. He is a good athlete, played a lot of safety, if I remember correctly, at Lake Travis at the time. So he's got athleticism there. So want to mention him, but I'm really enamored by the potential of that of Kosi Akpala. And I'm not going to compare him to Smith Orogbo, but when you watch him and kind of see how they move when it comes to their pass rushing, the first step is quick. And Kosi is not Smith. Smith is a little different when it comes to that edge rushing quickness. But he's very long levered and he's got moves to him already. He played a lot off the edge in high school. So that's something that I look at and say, okay, you got versatility there. Is he a full-time middle backer? I don't think so. But in what we believe to be this 2 overhang defense with Will Muschamp, he's going to find a role as kind of one of those outside linebackers eventually. Will it be in 26? Again, we'll have to wait and see how much he grows and develops and performs against this level of play. But altogether, toolsy kid, Rod, and someone that makes his money going forward, rushing the passer, similarly to what we've seen with Trey Moore and Brad Spence.
Love what you said about Marcus Boswell. Matter of fact, he had 2 fumble recoveries this past season. One of them was on special teams, actually. I believe it was on punt coverage, on a muffed punt. But the young man has actually made some plays. I was looking at his havoc rate. I mean, he didn't play much. I think he had 199 snaps, but he had a pick, had a fumble recovery. Had a forced fumble, a strip sack, I believe, in that group too. So young man makes some plays, and he's definitely definitely a hell of an athlete. And to what you said about Kosiak Pala is interesting. I just wonder with Kosiak Pala, Brad Spence, you do have about two or three of these guys, and I want to get this out there too about Rasheed Biles. I went and looked up how many times he was on the edge. 214 career snaps on in his career, like in terms of as a pass rusher, and 247 snaps on the edge.
Huh. That's more than I would have thought.
Yeah, 200 in his career, in somebody's career, 247 snaps. So I went through, I like, oh man, I didn't realize he played that much. I've seen it sometimes on film, but so he's a guy. Also, you brought up, Brad Spence is a guy that situationally, if you want to, kind of roll some linebackers down from that, from that second level, bump the front somewhere. You could do it with guys like Rasheed Biles. You could do it with Brad Spence. And now you're talking about Kosiak Pala. So maybe there is a plan for those guys, some of those guys to have that ability, because maybe that's one of the alterations or variations of your front that you would have one of those linebackers on the edge there. It's going to be interesting, but this is a really talented group and a diverse group is what I like more about it too. They got a lot of different pieces for guys to fit in a lot of different roles. All right. Great stuff, CJ. Appreciate you and appreciate all you guys out there for watching and for listening. And we'll be back with another breakdown. We'll break down the secondary probably coming up next, corners and safeties. I got to be a part of that. For CJ, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Until next time, hook 'em horns.